everybody, welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to start this video off by stating the obvious. I am blonde again. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this day and it has finally arrived. I decided to go blonde again because I was just kind of getting sick of keeping up with the maintenance of my roots. I am a level 8 naturally and I was a level 4 or 5 on my root with my dark hair. So it was just a lot of maintenance. I looked like I had gray hair when my hair would grow in and it was just not cute. So I was just ready for a change. It's getting a little warmer outside. It's now March. I just kind of wanted to be lighter and brighter for summertime. I was able to go back pretty easily. This was just done in one session. I should have filmed it, but I didn't. But the reason I was able to go back so quickly and so well was because I only ever used demi-permanent color on my hair when I was dark. And that is a good option for you blondes out there, or if your clients are blonde and they're wanting to go darker for a fun little change just for a little bit. Using demi-permanents is awesome because then when they want to go back blonde, it's not as hard to cut back through that permanent color as it would be with a demi. So that's why I decided to go back blonde, because it did lift pretty easily. I kept a bit of a rooted look just because I want a little more depth around my face, but I did go pretty blonde. I have tape and extensions as well. Adds a little bit of a brighter blonde towards the ends. So I'm really loving it. I feel like myself again. Let me know what you guys think. Should I go back dark? Should I stay blonde? Let me know your opinions. So this video today is going to be a part of my beauty school series, and this video is one that I am so excited about. It was probably my most requested and my most my favorite idea in this whole series, because I feel like it's so basic, but it's also something that a lot of people don't understand. And sometimes school just doesn't teach us what we need to know, or it does, and then you get out in the real world and you kind of forget the basics because you overthink everything. So this video is going to help us understand color theory, toners, fillers, the color wheel, all of those things that we need to be really great colorists. So if you are interested in watching this, stay tuned. Okay, so this video is going back to the basics. I'm going to be talking about levels of hair color, underlying pigments in those levels, the color wheel, counteracting colors, warm and cool colors, toners, fillers, all of those basic things that sometimes we struggle with because we overthink everything in the salon. At least I do. So I am going to be using this little color chart to help you guys understand the underlying pigment of each level. So we have a level 10, which is a pale yellow, level 9, which is yellow, level 8, which is yellow-orange, level 7, which is orange, level 6, which is orange-red, level 5, which is red, level 4, which is red-violet, level 3, which is violet, level 2, which is blue-violet, and then level 1, which is blue. Understanding the underlying pigments of each level is very important, because then when you're lifting and you get to a level 6 or a 7 and you see bright orange hair, you don't freak out because you know that the underlying pigment of 6 and 7 is orange and red, and you know what to counteract that with. We're going to be working with those warm tones when lifting, and then we're going to be working with those cool tones while toning and counteracting. So for levels with yellow underlying pigments, we're going to counteract with purple because purple counteracts yellow in the color wheel. Then as we get down to orange, we're going to counteract with blue because blue counteracts orange on the color wheel. And then as we get to red, we're going to counteract with green because green counteracts red on the color wheel. Knowing the color wheel is so important. It's very basic, but as long as you have that memorized and you know what to counteract with, you will always know what to tone with. Now, understanding the color wheel and the underlying pigments isn't just important for toning, it's also important for filling. So if you have a client that's at a level 10 or a level 9 and they want to go down to a level 5 or a level 4, you have to think about the underlying pigments and the tones that you're going to be skipping by going all the way down to that level. So you can't take a level 9, 10 client and just put a 4N on her, because she's going to be missing those orange and those yellow and those red tones that we're skipping over while going down that dark. Since the underlying pigment of level 5 is red, we don't have to worry about adding red back in because that level 5 is helping with that. But we are missing the oranges because we are skipping over the 7s, the 6s, all of those warm tones. So a lot of times I will fill the hair with like a gold or a copper and then do my 5N. And that way we are getting the red, the golds, the coppers, all of those pigments that are going to be missing when filling the hair. A cool little trick to try to decide what color looks best on your skin tone is to check your wrists. So a lot of times if you have blue veins, that means cooler colors look better on you. And if you have green veins, then warmer colors look better on you. If you can't decide and you are a mix between blue and green, then that means they both look good on you and you're kind of a neutral skin tone. That doesn't mean you can only wear cool colors on yourself if you are blue and only warm colors if you're green. Some people look great in both. It's just kind of the guideline to know what will complement your skin tone the best. And And I have noticed that a lot of like natural redheads will have green veins, and that means that those warm, rich, coppery gold colors look best on them. And I have a mix. I always thought that I had blue veins, but as I look at them more, I feel like I have blue up here and green down here, and it's kind of a mix of both. And that's why I'm able to pull off warmer colors and cooler colors. For example, when I was dark just a little bit ago, I had some caramely tones, warmer browns in my hair, and I really liked it, but now I have an ashy blonde and I like that as well. So I do feel like I can pull off both as long as I'm staying in the level and the tones that look best with my skin. So just because cool colors look good on me doesn't necessarily mean that I should go down to a level 1 with blue undertones. It does mean that I should stay within the realm of what looks good on me, but I know what tones work best with my skin. Something else that's important to remember is you can't put an ash color on blonde hair. I know that that seems pretty basic, but sometimes we will get clients asking us, I want a warm, or I don't want warmth at all. I don't want red, I don't want gold, I want an ashy brown, or I want an ashy brown low light. And so we kind of freak out and we're like, okay, then I'll use a 7A or a 7AA, you know, something that's ash. But that blonde hair has no pigment, so it can't handle that, and then a lot of times it will look muddy, it won't saturate completely, and it will rinse right out and it will look green. So we have to make sure that we are not putting ashes over blonde hair, and it's really important to remember that even if your blonde is pretty warm, even if it's like a level 7 or an 8, and you physically see a lot of golds, reds, oranges, yellows, well, maybe not reds, but if you see a lot of like oranges and yellows, you naturally want to counteract that with an ash, but that hair is still too light. Anything 7 and above is still too light to put a straight ash on. So a lot of times I will do half N, half G, just because you need that N to neutralize, but then a little bit of G to help fill that hair so it doesn't go too muddy. Sometimes I can do a 7N, 7G, and just a tiny bit of 7NA just to help get a little bit of ash in there, but even then it's a little questionable. You have to make sure you're confident when doing that and that your client's hair can handle it, because I have seen stylists put levels 6, 7 ashes on levels 8s and 9s, and it's just scary because it does go too muddy, and a lot of times it will go too dark because that blonde is so porous that when you're putting a level 6 or a 7 ash is naturally darker, and it's going to go a lot darker than you were thinking it was going to. So just remembering that you want to make sure if you're going for an ashy tone, just use a neutral, sometimes add in a little gold just to help counteract that, but it is important never to put ash on blonde hair. When I was first starting out doing hair, I had a hard time understanding how toners worked. I feel like a lot of people are like, I don't like to use toners because I can do the color without having to counteract with a toner. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes your client hair lifts out beautifully and it's fine, but a lot of times we do need a toner to help counteract unwanted tones. So as long as you go by the rule that a toner is to enhance the color, not to fix it, I think you will be okay. A lot of times I think people use toners as a quick fix because they don't know what else to do, they just want to cover it with a toner, and that's good. But those toners do fade out eventually, and you want to make sure that you are getting to the right amount of lift that your client needs to be able to tone with that level. And it's very important to tone within the level your client is. You can't tone a warm level 7 with a 9V. Just because a 9V is a cooler base, it doesn't mean that that cooler base is going to go with the level 7, because the 9V is meant to counteract anything that has yellow in it, like 8s and 9s, not necessarily something like a level 7 which has orange. So just remember, even though the toner is cooler, it doesn't mean it's going to work for your client. You have to counteract what level you're at or darker. So if you're pulling really warm with a level 7 or a 6 is good to tone with. When you're going up to a level 8, 7s and 8s are good, and you just go up from there. And toners are definitely meant just to enhance. They can add shine, gloss, dimension. They also do help counteract. But I think something I struggled with is I always thought of toners as counteracting brass, which a lot of times they do, and they help, and they are great for that. But toners can also help add warmth back into the hair, which is really important to know, because a lot of times we'll have clients where they are pretty icy, but they don't want to be too icy. So let's say we lift them out to a level 9, and they just want to be a neutral level 9. I definitely want to counteract some of that yellow with a 9V, but I don't want it to go too icy or too purple. So I can use a level 9N in shades of Q or whatever color line you use, and I can counteract with that. So I could do half 9N, half 9V. That way I am counteracting the yellow tones, but that N's going to help neutralize it so that it doesn't go too icy. And a lot of times with our caramels and our warm, rich, beautiful colors, we need to add warmth back into them. If you are lifting from dark, a lot of times you will get that warmth while lifting, and then we counteract with cool tones. But if you are a lighter client going darker, you need to think of your toner as filling the hair. So if they want to go to like a level 7 and they want it really rich and warm and caramely and they were a level 8 or 9 to begin with, you could tone with like a 7NW, a 7NB, a 6WG. Those are really warm colors and it's going to give your client that warm, rich, caramely effect, and it's not going to be brassy, it's going to be warm, and there's a right way to do warm, and that's with toners. Don't get scared if the toner comes out red or orange, because a lot of times it does oxidize a little differently, and it can be scary, but that doesn't mean that your client's hair is going to be that color. You can see it as it's in the bowl, you can see it start to change, and it will be just a really warm, pretty, neutral color. Make sure you really understand the color line you are using, because even though you know the levels, the underlying pigments, the color wheel, you can know those backwards and forwards, and it's really important to understand those, but just remember that every color line is different. Just because you use a Pravana 5N and then you switch to a Redken 5N doesn't mean they're going to do the same thing. So having the basic common knowledge of these types of things is really important, but also make sure that you do your research and you study and you learn the color line that you are going to be using. Especially if it's a color line that's new to you, don't guinea pig it and try it on a new client. Make sure you use a mannequin or you try it on someone else as like a little test run to make sure you know what that color line does. Because some color lines are cooler than others, some are warmer than others. Even if they're a neutral, it could have a little more warmth, it could have a little more of a blue-green undertone. It just depends. And the thing I like about Joico is they do have little dots of color next to their swatches, and so you know if it's a blue undertone or a green undertone, because a lot of times we'll use like a level 7 ash or a 6 ash, and we don't know if it's blue or green that we're counteracting with. So if you're trying to counteract a color that's really red and you use a 6A but it's a blue undertone instead of a green, it's not going to do what you're wanting it to. You want to make sure that you're counteracting with a 6A that has a green undertone so that you cut the red tones in the hair. And it's the same thing if you're trying to counteract orange. You want to make sure that the color you're using is a blue base rather than a green base. So when it comes to ash colors, it's really hard, and that's why it's important to understand the color line that you are using. I use Goldwell and Redken. I know their colors backward and forward. I know what to look for. I know what they do. When I do use new colors, and I like to branch out every once in a while and try new things, I make sure I do my research and I understand what those colors do before I put them on my client's hair. And you guys know that I like to tone with Redken Shades EQ a lot. Yes, it is a little bit of a demi color. It's a gloss. It's not a permanent color. The longer you let it sit on, the longer it will last. The rule of thumb with toners is every minute equals 1 wash. So if you leave your toner on for 1 minute, that's 1 wash. 2 minutes, 2 washes, etc. A lot of times I will dilute my Shades EQ processing solution with crystal clear as well. That way you can leave it on a little bit longer and it stays on the hair longer and it gets into the cuticle a little bit. But that's where blue and purple shampoos come into play, because even though your toner fades, if your client understands that they can tone their hair at home with blue shampoo, with purple shampoo, and by using the right products, then their hair will be okay. But the thing I like about Shades EQ is that it comes with this little color book, and what it does is it tells you what you're counteracting with. So for example, a 9B is a 9 blue, and it tells you right here, it cools, neutralizes, minimizes unwanted warm tones, and the base is black to gray plus blue. So the 1B has a black and gray base, and the 9B has a blue base. They also have neutral toners, which is really great if you're not wanting to go too icy or too warm. These neutral colors are also really good for root smudges. And it tells you right here, natural, brown to tan, blue to violet. Because remember, neutrals also have warmer and cooler colors mixed in with them, and neutral isn't flat. You have to have warm colors and cool colors coming together to make that neutral. And this is why it is so important to know your color line. When I first started out using color, I used Redken Shades EQ, and I grabbed a 6AA thinking it was a 6 ash. And so I was like, okay, so if I have a client I'm lifting and they're pulling a little warm, I'm gonna use this 6AA to counteract that. No, turns out 6AA is actually Bonfire, which is bright red. So it tells me here that the base is an orange red. I had no idea. They have a 3AA and a 6AA and then a 9AA. And I think I bought the 6AA and the 9AA thinking that they were ashes, just double ash. But that was not the case. They are actually coppery and red. So I used that on a client and she was like a level 8 and it turned it really, really copper, and I learned my lesson. But that just goes to show that it's very important to understand the terminology from each color line and what they're doing. And I do have a lot of stylists who have started at my salon who have come from Aveda, for example, and they will be so confused because they add tones into their hair color. And if any of you are Aveda stylists, you will understand this. They have their basic levels 1 through 10, and then they add in their golds, their warmths, their cools, and a lot of times G for them is green, whereas in my world, G is gold. and sometimes it can be green. It just depends on the color line. So it's very important to know what you're working with and understand that a B doesn't necessarily mean blue. Sometimes it can mean beige. So knowing the color line and knowing what they are abbreviating things with is very important. And my favorite color from this line are the V's. So we have 7B, 8B, 9B, they even have a 3B. This is a straight violet base. I don't necessarily love the 7B because I feel like a lot of times when you're at a level 7, you're gonna have orange rather than yellow, but they actually did come out with a 7P, which is a blue and a violet base, and that's been helping a lot more because that blue counteracts that orange. So I really like using the 7P, but the 8B and the 9B are so, so good. I like mixing these with P's, with N's, with T's. I just really like to mix colors, and the more you understand the colors you're working with, the color wheel, underlying pigments, levels, all of that, you will be able to mix confidently and feel like a better colorist. It is also important to remember when working with gray hair, it has no pigment, whether they are 50% gray or 100% gray. The more gray they are, the more stubborn and resistant their hair will be, but you have to treat it differently than regular hair. So a little tip I like to do when working with gray hair that is more resistant is pre-softening before you color, and that means taking 20 volume on its own, applying it to the hair, letting it sit 10 to 15 minutes to soften and open that cuticle, and then you can go back in with your color formula and put it right on top of that. And it's really important to always use double ends, which are double pigments, when covering gray. You don't necessarily have to, but it is a good tip on helping the gray cover completely because that double pigment will help cover it completely since there is no pigment. A lot of times if we have clients who have level 8, 9, 10 hair naturally, we have to treat it like gray hair because it does have little to no pigment like gray hair does. It's not as coarse or resistant depending on the hair, but it is lighter and we have to treat it differently. I know that from experience because my own hair is a level 8, 9 naturally, and my hair does not take color very easily. As I said, I've been using demi-permanents on my hair as it's been dark, but a lot of times I had to pre-soften my hair first, or I had to use a demi-permanent in a darker color than I was looking for just so it would look like the level I was going for, or sometimes I even had to do it twice. So since my hair is so light, it does act like gray hair, and it's something that was super frustrating for me, but as long as you know that your client's hair reacts that way, then you will know how to solve it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was probably a little boring with me just sitting and talking to the camera, but I do feel like it's really important to go over these things. They are things that I feel like we kind of forget, you know? We learn these basics in school, but then we get so caught up with doing the current trends and awesome hair colors that sometimes we forget to go back to basics and understand what we were taught to begin with. So I hope this video helped you, whether you are a new student, whether you're in school, a new stylist, a seasoned hairdresser. I feel like we can all learn by going back to the basics and remembering where we came from. I have a long list of ideas to do in this beauty school series, and I don't see it ending anytime soon. I'm going to try to do one video a week with the beauty school series, as well as mixing in normal hair videos throughout. So if you do not see a beauty school series video one week, don't freak out, it will be here the next week. But I have really enjoyed doing this series for you guys. I have some fun ideas for it. I do have that list of ideas, but I also want your input and feedback. Let me know what you're struggling with. Let me know what you want to see, whether it's super basic or super complicated. I would love to make a video for you targeting your concern and your needs. I have some super fun things coming up within the next couple of months, so if you are interested in seeing any of those things, follow along with my adventure by clicking subscribe. Make sure to get notified so that you can see my videos when I first post them. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends. If you guys have any other questions regarding this video or just any educational hair questions at all, please email me. I will leave all of my information in the drop-down bar below. I love getting emails and messages from subscribers. I get them on Instagram, YouTube, email, and I love it. Whether you're telling me that you enjoyed my videos just for fun or that you learned something. And I also love answering questions. I will get subscribers asking me questions on how they would do this on their client, what my advice would be, and I just think it's so fun to brainstorm with other hairdressers. I'm not saying I know everything because I am for sure still learning, but I think getting someone else's opinion is really fun, and then we can bounce ideas back and forth. So if you were interested in talking to me, reaching out to me, asking me questions, make sure to email me, follow me on Instagram. I usually respond on there pretty quickly. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a fabulous day.